This is a ceiling pop. Cpop for short. And here's the simplest way to do it. Find a wall, say to your right, hold right and release grab to slide down a bit. This is important, I'll explain why later. Grab the wall and go to this pixel. It's the second pixel from the top where Madeline does the hanging animation. You know you're in the right spot when Madeline's hands are 1 pixel higher than the bottom of the wall, like this. Keep holding grab and right and start holding down. After 6 frames, press jump. Here it is at full speed. This is a very reliable method and you can just use this one, but it is frame perfect, and we can do better. But there's a small catch. You see, every method from now on will require the use of 1 frame long taps. Celeste is a game that runs at 60 frames per second, so for a button press to be 1 frame long, it needs to be 1/16th of a second, or 16 to 17 milliseconds, more or less. The problem is that some keyboards just aren't able to do it, say some older models or some laptop keyboards. So, if you're not sure, I've linked in the description a website where you can check your key presses. Press a bunch of keys and try to press them for as short of a time as you can, say by flicking them, like this. If you're consistently unable to get presses that are 70 milliseconds or lower, it's all good, you can stick to the first method, it works great. But if you can, now you got some more options. For example, this is the 2-frame cpop method, and if you're gonna take anything from this video, let it be this one. Create a some guy. First, we need to bind a button for both up and jump, like this. Slide a bit against the wall, as before. Now we need to do 1 frame taps up into this pixel. Madeline's hands need to be in line with the bottom of the wall. Now, while still holding right and grab as before, start holding down, and press your up plus jump key on either of these frames. This is by far the most universally applicable cpop. Take your time to learn it, it's worth it. Okay, time to explain what's going on here. A ceiling pop is a climb jump from under a wall. We'll get to how it works later, but for now, all we need to know is that the conditions for this to happen are dependent on Madeline's exact position, also known as her subpixels. Madeline's position is a fractional number. She can be visually on the same pixel on screen, but in reality she can be in any number of real positions subdividing the pixel. Subpixels. This is normally invisible to us when playing, but with the help of a mod called Celeste, we can show these subpixel values on screen. You can enable this overview in the mod options, or you can press the shortcut. The default is double-click control. Everything we did so far, like sliding against the wall and 1 frame tapping into pixels, are ways to manipulate our subpixels so that ceiling popping can be more predictable. Sliding against the wall makes sure we're close enough to it, and 1 frame tapping into a pixel makes sure we're on one end of it, depending on where we start from. If we don't account for that, trying to cpop can be unpredictable, and in some positions even totally impossible. Taking all of this into account, we can do one better. How about 3 frames? This is a modified version of the 2-frame cpop. Credit to some guy in Arty on this one. The setup for this one is much less universal and a lot more involved, and we're gonna need a refill crystal to replenish our stamina because we're gonna stay here for a while. Slide against the wall. Go to the bottom pixel. Do 1 frame taps down until you re-grab the wall. You should hear a grabbing sound and see Madeline do a little twitch. Now, start 1 frame tapping down. Most of the time, you'll re-grab the wall every 3rd tap, like this. You want to reach a position where you re-grab after only 2 taps. Now, do 3 additional 1 frame taps down. You should re-grab the wall on the 3rd tap. Finish with 3 1 frame taps up, and you're golden. Slide down and press up plus jump on any of these 3 frames. This is pretty good, but we can do one better. 2, even. Say 5 frames? Let's talk buffers. A buffer is when you press a key slightly before an action is possible, and the game still registers that key press and lets you perform that action on the first possible frame if you're still holding it. Celeste has a buffer window of 4 frames, and including the actual frame of the movement, we have a whopping 5 frames to work with. The next 3 setups are all ways to make the cpop a buffer, and thus making it extremely easy to hit. But for this to work, we need to get better at manipulating our subpixels. Hey, remember that sliding against the wall thing from before? Sliding against the wall puts Madeline in one of 2 horizontal positions, either dead center of the pixel or the close 1/3 of it to the wall. So far this has been good enough, but this won't do with the buffer setups. Introducing horizontal normalization. Credit to Nins. When Madeline hits a wall without grabbing it, her horizontal subpixels are set to 0.5 from each direction. Usually when we do it we hold towards the wall, but the moment we hit it we start alternating between the 2 horizontal positions from earlier. But if we release directions before hitting the wall, we can guarantee that we have the 0.5 horizontal subpixels, and then we can grab the wall and continue from there, knowing our exact horizontal position. In practice, it usually looks like this. You do a neutral jump on the wall, which is jumping while not grabbing and not holding any horizontal directions. You start holding towards the wall, and you release the direction around here. It should be close enough to the wall so that Madeline's remaining speed allows her to collide with it. Now, face plant, and only after that, press grab. It is incredibly important to only grab the wall after Madeline collides with it. That should guarantee that you have 0.5 horizontal subpixels. I recommend practicing this with Celeste as open so you get a feel for it, it's gonna become very important. With that in mind, here are 3 ways to set up a bufferable cpop. First, the free wallkick method. Here's the setup. Start by getting 0.5 horizontal subpixels by neutraling into the wall and releasing directions before hitting it, as before. Grab the wall. Now do 1 frame taps down into any of these pixels, where Madeline's feet are either in line with the bottom of the wall, 1 pixel above it, or 1 pixel below. Now start wall kicking. Hold away from the wall and jump. We won't jump held from now on, so you can hold one jump button and wall kick with the other, say your up plus jump bind from before. After wall kicking, quickly release grab and hold towards the wall, buffer 2 more wall kicks, and lastly, buffer a climb jump. Like this. Next one is very similar, it's called the free wall kick fastfall cpop. For this, get 0.5 horizontal subpixels, 1 frame tap up into this pixel, start wall kicking as before, but after the third wall kick start holding down. Buffer a jump. This last setup is a bit more involved, but the cpop itself couldn't be easier, the single wall kick method. After getting 0.5 horizontal subpixels, we need to further manipulate our horizontal position by doing a double neutral. By releasing grab in directions and jumping twice on 2 consecutive frames, we can do 2 neutral jumps off the wall. You definitely need a few jump buttons for this one. You should see 2 clouds overlapping, that means you got it. After repressing grab and right, once we grab the wall, our horizontal position should look something like this. Now we need to 1 frame tap down into either the bottom pixel or the one above it, and then do an additional 1 frame tap down. Now, with all this set up, jump away from the wall, hold back, and buffer a jump. That's it. You don't even need to release grab here. Admittedly, this setup is kinda silly, it requires a frame perfect to avoid another frame perfect, but that doesn't matter, really. Any one of the setups so far is just a way to get into a specific position reliably. When we're playing actual maps, we're usually not dealing with a spherical Madeline in a frictionless vacuum. Which brings us to the last type of setup, map-specific setups. Let's say, hypothetically, you're playing a hard map, say Dashless Plus. You get to room 3 and it's absolutely kicking your ass. You might want to check out the Celeste community Discord server, link in the description, and there, look for the hard clear strats or deathless strats channels. Using the search function, you can check if someone has already posted a strategy for the room you're struggling with. And lo and behold, some guys got you covered with a single wall kick buffered cpop into a 3-frame cpop. Both of these methods required incredibly elaborate setups before, but again, the final position is all that matters, so there might be an easier way to get the required subpixels. And if there's truly nothing, not all hope is lost. With Celeste as open, speedrun tool ready, and a healthy dose of desperation, you can try setting up a specific cpop yourself in a laboratory setting, which is called labbing. And I will not cover it in this video. That's for nerds. Speaking of nerds, this portion of the video is dedicated to the nitty-gritty technical details, so prepare yourselves. What is really happening under the hood? To truly understand how cpops work, we need to take a look inside the game's code, which was generously made open source by the good folks at Extremely OK Games. Inside the player class, there is a function called climb update, which is called every frame when Madeline is in state climb, aka grabbing a wall. And here we can see the reason behind cpops' existence in the game. Order of operations. The function does a few things in a specific order. One of them, near the beginning, is to check if the player intends to do a climb jump. Later, the function checks if Madeline has a wall in front of her to hold on to, and if not, it returns state normal, because she should exit state climb if she's not able to hold the wall. And, because this check happens only after the jump check, there is a possibility for the player, for a single frame, to be able to climb jump regardless, even if they don't have a wall in front of them, before the game forces them out of state climb. An important thing to note is that the climb jump only moves you 2/3 of a pixel on the first frame, which means if you're farther away from the wall, you're just gonna jump up the wall, which is why we had to worry about our horizontal positioning. Now we're gonna go through all the methods described thus far to explain how each one of them works. I'm going to divide them into 3 categories: sliding cpops, falling cpops, and regrab cpops. Gonna start with the sliding cpop, the first one we discussed. Sliding cpops are based around the fact that when Madeline starts climbing down the wall, there is exactly one frame where she has just left the wall but the game has yet to check if she has anything to hold on to. This is because the game calculates movement only after dealing with state updates. The timing for when exactly is that frame, the one where she is under the wall but still in state climb, varies based on where she started sliding down from. And most pixels have variable timing depending on Madeline's vertical subpixels. So, I chose a pixel that does not have that problem, the second hanging pixel. As to why that specific pixel works, let us look at Madeline's hitbox, which is the part of her that actually interacts with the game world. Now let's zoom in at the top right pixel and imagine it as a square with sides of 1 placed on the Cartesian coordinate system, with the bottom right corner placed at y equals 4. Let's call her square line. Square line corresponds to every single subpixel position Madeline can have on the 5th pixel from the bottom. Let's say the player has just started to press down, and we'll go through the motion step by step. On the first frame, square line speed is 1/4 of a pixel per frame, and she ends up here. On the next frame, her speed is 1/2 of a pixel per frame. In total, she's moved 3/4 of a pixel downward. We'll continue through it frame by frame. On the third frame, her speed is 3/4 of a pixel per frame. On the fourth frame, her speed is 1 pixel per frame. And on the 5th pixel, her speed is now 1 1/4 pixels per frame. Now, on the 6th frame, her speed caps out at 1 1/3 pixels per frame for a total movement of 5 1/12 pixels. And she ends up minus 1/12 of a pixel below the ceiling. That means that no matter where she was, subpixel-wise, on the 5th pixel from the bottom, on the start of her movement, on the 6th frame, she has just left the wall and is still in state climb. And that means that she's under the wall, in state climb, and can climb jump, which means she can cpop every single time on the 6th frame, provided she is on the close 2/3 of a pixel to the wall. Thank you.
Dad.
No.
Yes.
No. I shan't. Now we'll move to falling cpops, such as the wallkick methods we discussed earlier. There is a form of leniency built into the game that allows Madeline to grab a wall even if she is not directly touching it. Specifically, Madeline can grab a wall even if she is pixel away from it, and she can grab the bottom of a wall even when she is 2 pixels below it. That means there is a 2x3 rectangle of pixels below the wall where Madeline can grab it. And the thing that makes falling cpops possible is a specific order of operations that happens when Madeline grabs the bottom pixel of the wall. When Madeline is inside that rectangle and tries to grab the bottom pixel, the game first snaps her to that pixel, without touching her subpixels. Second, the game divides her speed by 5. And lastly, the game moves her by that amount. That means that with low enough positioning and high enough speed, Madeline will be moved below the pixel she's trying to grab. And that means she can cpop. The wallkick methods are just ways to guarantee that sort of positioning and speed, and because the cpop happens on the first frame where a climb jump is possible, that jump can be buffered, resulting in a comparatively huge frame window. And now, Regrab cpops, the ones that utilize the up plus jump button. Sometimes they're called mixed cpops, as they're a bit of a combination between sliding and falling cpops. You'll see. The principle behind those is how the game handles opposite directional inputs. When you're sliding down the wall, you can be in one of the positions where the game allows you to grab the bottom of the wall. But, because you're holding down, the game is coded to not make you re-grab the ball even though you're holding grab, to not make you stuck on the wall. Enter the up plus jump key. When pressing opposite inputs, the game prioritizes the most recent one. So, when we press up plus jump while still holding down, up overrides down, which means that if we're still in the range of 2 pixels below the wall, the game will let us re-grab the wall. Like with the falling cpop, if we're low enough inside the pixel and with enough speed, we can end up below the wall the next frame. And the up plus jump key works as a jump buffer as well as a directional override. In a 2-frame cpop, the first frame we can cpop on is just the regular frame we get from sliding down the wall. The second cpop frame happens when we're below the wall but still high enough to grab it, and with low enough subpixels so that our speed divided by 5 will still move us a pixel down and we can grab the wall because we press up. A 3-frame cpop is a modified version of that, and makes it so both frames after the normal sliding frame work by having low enough position and enough speed. It is much more precise because of it, 0.15 of a pixel to be exact, which is why it requires such an elaborate setup, as 1 frame taps move us 0.25 of a pixels, which is simply not precise enough. Bonus point, if you're doing a normal sliding cpop, you can still use the up plus jump key, and sometimes it can just buy you an extra frame to cpop, or just let you jump back up the wall and save you if you're a frame late. In the second hanging pixel method, if you're at the very top part of the pixel, pressing up plus jump will save you, and if you're around the middle, it will buy you an extra frame. That means that even if you cannot 1-frame tap, you can upgrade that cpop setup by trying to gently regrab the wall into the second hanging pixel, or you're welcome. And a few rapid fire topics before we end off. Remember that 2x3 rectangle we discussed before in regards to grabbing the bottom of the wall? 4 of those pixels are below the wall, so this means you have a 2x2 square below spiked walls where you can cpop but never actually be in front of the wall when the game checks where they should kill you from spikes, which makes spiked cpops a thing. Reverse cpops happen when instead of climb jumping towards the wall on the cpop frame, you wall kick away from it, which is possible due to the code in climb update accounting for wall jumps. This is useful for playing 433. This is what I play Celeste for. Because ceiling pops are, at the end of the day, just climb jumps, they can be subjected to lift boost. So, lift boost cpops. They're the same but fast, I'm not explaining lift boost. And with lift boost you can also do a cpop with a neutral climb jump, which means you can wall boost out of it and you can do this funky move, and I'm not explaining wall boosts. You can also cpop out of red bubbles. If done on a 1 tile wide column, this can allow it to kick off the other side, and I'm not explaining speed retention, state red dash or state hit squash. Downwind cpops. The wind pushes you down and you can cpop. You can even do it crouched. Information on screen, I ain't reading that. Finally, Theo cpops. They're the exact same, but you just grab Theo afterwards. There's literally nothing to explain about them. I just think they're neat. Go play The White Hole by Zeo. And that's all. I've provided all of the relevant resources below, along with the subpixel ranges of each one of the ceiling pop types mentioned in the video for y'all to lab out. Thank you so much for all the folks who helped, both directly by reviewing the script and in general by researching all of this and making the information public. If I got anything wrong, please let me know in the comments, and if any technical minded folks want to help me out with fact checking, feel free to DM me on Discord, show me my name. Have a good one. A ceiling pop is a climb jump from under a wall.